Welcome back to this course on polymer chemistry, and in this lecture we will continue our discussion on chain copolymerization, which we began in the last lecture and the lecture before. Now, we have talked about different types of copolymers, random copolymers, statistical copolymers, alternate copolymers, block copolymers, and then we talked about importance of copolymerization in last lecture, how we can improve the property of a existing homopolymer by introducing another comonomer in the polymer. And then we talked about copolymer composition equation, and we applied a simple model of terminal model, where we basically were talking about how the composition of copolymer can be predicted from the reactivity, monomer reactivity ratios, and we started our discussion on different types of copolymerization, and then as a result of different types of copolymerization, what are the different types of copolymer microstructure possible. We started and we are halfway in that discussion. So, we will start from this today and then move on to composition drift in the copolymer as we go on increasing the conversion in the copolymerization reaction, and then monomer reactivity, how it depends on the different modes of chain initiation, and then we will talk about effect of structure on reactivities mainly in radical copolymerization, and we will discuss QE scheme and then briefly discuss the ionic copolymerization, and then in very brief we will talk about application of the copolymers we are talking about. Now, if we continue the discussion we are having in last lecture, we have talked about different types of copolymers. For example, we have talked that in first case, if you have R1, R2 is 1, which gives us ideal copolymerization. Now, this happens if the monomers have very similar structures, and in most of the ionic polymerizations also follow this type of behavior, and there is a special case which where both R1 R2 1, and in that case we have seen that F1 is the mole fraction of the monomers are same as the mono fractions in the feed. We have seen the second type where this product is equals to 0 and which gives towards alternate copolymerization, as a special case where R1 and R2 is both are 0 is a perfect alternate copolymer, where basically F1 so as F2 is 0.5, and the closer this ratio R1 and R2 to 0, it is the resulting copolymer will be more towards alternate. Now, we will talk about the third option possible, where R1 multiplied by R2 is neither 0 or neither 1. Now, there is first possibility where one of the monomer reactivity ratios are more than 1, another would be obviously less than 1. It could be the other way as usual. It could be R 1 could be less than 1 or R 2 could be less than 1, and usually this product is less than 1 and some cases they are slightly above 1 at possible in the usual copolymer reaction. Now, in this case what happened, the F 1 versus monomer, the ratio of polymer composition is versus monomer composition curve is similar to ideal copolymerization, but skewed toward the composition of the copolymer richer in the repeat unit resulting from the more reactive monomer. So, it is similar to the ideal composition copolymerization. If I plot F 1 with F 1, now in case of ideal we have seen that R 1 is R 2 is equal to 1 and this is R 1 greater than 1, R 2 less than 1, but R 1 R 2 is equal to 1. Now, if this is not equals to 1 and if R 1 is the more reactive monomer compared to R 2, M 1 is the more reactive monomer compared to M 2, then it will be skewed. This was for ideal, then this will be skewed towards the more reactive monomer. The higher this ratio, this R 1 by R 2, the higher this ratio of R 1 R 2, the longer is the continuous sequence of M 1 type monomer in the copolymer and shorter is the sequence of the M 2 monomer. So, if this is higher means the M 1 will have a longer sequence in the copolymer and M 2 will have a shorter sequence in the comonomer. In extreme case, if R 1 is very high and R 2 is very low, then the tendency would be to make consecutive homopolymers. Because this is very high, then you will get something like, and R 2 is very small. So, some cases you might get M 2 getting in and then again maybe one more at M 2. So, basically M 1 will have a much higher tendency to homopolymerize, whereas M 2 has little tendency to homopolymerize. Whatever tendency it has to react, it will make copolymer towards copolymer. So, you are, if the situation is like this, then you are going to get a polymer like this, which is essentially a homopolymer, because it is mostly M 1 with sometime M 2 here and there entering in the copolymer. And example is like styrene and vinyl acetate. if I write V A, the ratio of reactivity ratios are R 1, if this is M 1, this is M 2, R 1 is 55 in case of a radical polymerization and R 2 is 0.01. This is for a radical polymerization. So, basically styrene will have much higher tendency to homopolymerize compared to copolymers with vinyl acetate, whereas vinyl acetate has very little tendency to homopolymerize. So, you will get essentially homopolymer of styrene at the beginning, and then once the styrene is consumed, then you will get the homopolymer of vinyl acetate. Now, the second options in this case would be where R both R 1 is less than 1 and R 2 is less than 1. Now, obviously, R 1 R 2 is less than 1, but not equals to 0. Now, this because both of these are less than 1. So, both of this monomer has a tendency to copolymerize compared to homopolymerize. As a result, there would be tendency towards alternation rather than forming homopolymers, and F 1 versus F 1 curve will cross F 1 is equal to F 1 curve line rather at one point which corresponds to azeotropic mole fraction. F 1 azo. Now, again if I plot so that is the line corresponds to F 1 is F 1, which happens when R 1 is equals to R 2 is equal to 1. Now, in this case if both are less than 1, you will get a line like this, which will cross over in this point. So, this composition is corresponding to F 1 azo. Now, the term azeotropic mole fraction is coming because we know azeotropes where the mole fraction of two liquids in vapor phase equals to the mole fraction of the two liquids in liquid phase. Basically, the two liquids actually vaporize the same mole fraction in the vapor phase. So, here the composition in the free monomer is same as in the copolymer. So, if you take this particular composition and then polymerize, then we will get always the same concentration or same composition of the copolymers here. And if I write this, so in this case D M 1 now at this point the copolymers and the feed compositions are same, and copolymers occurs without changing the composition in the feed ratio. That is why we call this as a azeotropic composition, and we can get this from our earlier expression we derived in the last lecture as this. So, if you know the reactivity ratios R1 and R2, then we can get the azeotropic composition at which we can get a azeotropic copolymerization. So, if you do a copolymerization starting for a composition monomer composition here, then the corresponding copolymerization will be termed as azeotropic copolymerization. Now, there is a third possibility in this set where you have both R 1 and R 2 greater than 1, and obviously R 1 R 2 would be greater than 1. Now, this is a very rare, is not very very usual thing observed for a monomer pair, but if that is the case, then both the monomer has a greater tendency to homopolymerize compared to copolymerize. So, this would be having tendency towards block copolymer formation. So, now basically we have covered almost all possibilities of different combination of R 1 and R 2 values, and now let us see how these different types of copolymers would result in variation in composition. So, how this different set of values of R 1 and R 2, how that would be changing the combination of or copolymer composition with conversion. Now, if we take say ideal copolymerization where R 1 R 2 is 1, if R 1 is higher than 1 and R 2 is less than 1, then two monomers will get into the chain in a random fashion, but monomer M will be entering in the chain at a faster rate compared to M 2, which means at the beginning of the reaction, if we stop the copolymerization reaction at a lower, say less than 5% conversion, then you will get a copolymer which is have a higher mole fraction of the M1 unit in the copolymer compared to that is in the feed. So, as a result, what will happen with time, with conversion, the monomer composition will have less and less M1, because M1 is getting incorporated in the chain faster rate. So, you will have a drift in monomer composition with time, and as a result you will get drift in the copolymer composition as well. So, if you want to avoid this drift in copolymer composition, you should be restricting your copolymerization reaction to very low level of conversion, so that the feed ratio, the monomer ratio in the reaction medium does not alter too much compared to the feed ratio. Now, if you compare the other case like R 1 and R 2 is 0. Now, in this case, because this is a more of a alternate copolymers, as long as that more reactive monomer, in this case say R 1 is greater than 0 and R 2 is 0, as long as M 1 is remaining in the reaction medium, they will form alternate copolymer, but once M 1 it consumed, even if there are free M 2 present in the reaction medium, that cannot undergo homopolymerization because R2 is 0. So, basically at the end during the most of the reaction time you will get same composition of the resulting copolymers, and at the end if there are XX M2 you get free monomers. If you start with excess M1, then at the beginning you will get alternate copolymers, and when M2 is getting over, all the M2 is getting incorporated in the copolymer chain, you will get rest of the M1s which is remaining, they will homopolymerize, and so you get a alternate copolymer at the beginning, at the end you get a homopolymer of M1. If you talk about the case we just talked about, say R1 less than 1 and R2 is also less than 1, what will happen? Look at this plot versus molar ratio, mole percentage in the copolymer and in the monomer. If you start from a composition here, say this point, now because M1 is getting incorporated faster, so in this case below this point, before this point M1 is getting incorporated in the chain faster, and after this point it is M1 is getting incorporated in a slower rate. So, what will happen if you start from this point, the M1 will get incorporated in the chain much faster rate. So, eventually the concentration of M1 in the reaction M1 monomer in the reaction will come down to 0. If you start a point somewhere above this point, then less fraction of M1 would get into the chain. As a result, slowly with conversion the concentration or mole fraction of M1 monomer in the chain in the reaction medium would be going to 1. So, in this case you actually go through with composition where M1 in the M1 means the mole fraction of M1 in the reaction medium either 0 or 1. So, accordingly you will get drift in the copolymer composition as well. So, these are the some examples which we are which you can now convince that there is a tendency in this copolymer in most cases, except when R1 is R2 is equals to 1 or R1 and R1 R2 is 0. In rest of these cases you have a drift in the composition as you increase the conversion or as the reaction progress with time. So, what usually done in practice industry, in most of the applications require that you cannot have this much of drift in the composition of your polymer sample, and there is a basically there is a control over the composition in the entire polymer sample is required. So, what is done in practice, either you start the reaction from a known feed ratio and stop the reaction at a very low conversion, say less than 5%, but that is not very practical. Then you have to take out the polymer from that monomer mixture and restart the polymers and so on. So, that is not very practical. So, what is practically done is basically you add the more reactive monomer which is getting incorporated in the chain mass in a faster rate, that monomer is added in a controlled manner in the reaction medium. So, in effect you basically fix, or you basically remain or maintain the feed ratio or the monomer ratio of M1 and M2 unchanged during the entire polymerization. So, that the copolymer composition also does not change during the entire polymerization. So, you basically get homogeneous polymers. Now, let us talk about that monomer reactivity. Reactivities and chain initiation. Now, we have seen that this scheme with the what we have been talking till now is valid for radical initiation or ionic initiation, but these values, the set of values for R 1 and R 2, they are almost independent for a radical initiated chain copolymerization, but the values of individual R 1 and R 2 could dramatically change if the mode of initiation is changed. For example, if we take a set of monomer, like say let us take a example of styrene and say MMA, methyl methacrylate. Radical has, they have more or less similar reactivity. So, R 1 has 0.5 and R 2 is 0.44. So, if I plot that F 1 where M 1 is styrene, F1, that is the line corresponds to F 1 is F 1. Now, in case of radical copolymerization of styrene and MMA, it would looks like something like this. As you can see from R 1 is also less than 1 and R 2 is less than 1, but their reactivities are not very different. Now, if you do a cationic polymerization, then obviously styrene is much more reactive compared to MMA in a cationic polymerization. So, you get a curve like this. So, in case of cationic, R 1 is 10.5 and R 2 is 0.1, and in case of anionic you get the other way around, because in case of anionic the reactivity of methyl methacrylate is much faster compared to styrene. So, with this page shows that for a given radical reaction, you know these R 1 and R 2 values are almost same, different, you know they do not change too much with the reaction conditions like temperature and reaction medium, but if we have different chain initiation mode, then obviously the monomer reactivity ratios will be dramatically different, which depends on the stabilization of the resulting active center. and obviously for this ionic mechanisms, this also may depend on the solvent polarity and the counter and so on. Now, how do we determine this R 1 and R 2 experimentally? We have been talking. So, determination of or evaluation of reactivity ratios. So, I write just like R. Now, as I mentioned earlier also that this expression is we talked about this expression in the last lecture, that this is valid for innumerable number of set of monomers or pair of monomers, irrespective of whether the initiation is done by radical or an anion or a cation. So, we can use this expression, and from that we can actually get the value for R 1 and R 2. Now, this expression can be rearranged and written like this. The same expression which I just showed in the last page, we can simply do mathematical rearrangement and get a expression something like this. Now, what can be done is basically you do several reactions, start with different F1 values, you take feed monomer ratio with different F1 values and stop the reaction say less than 5% conversion, and quantify the amount of mole fraction of the monomer unit present in the copolymer at the end of this 5% or when you stop the reaction. You can do it by spectroscopic techniques like NMR, UV or IR, or even for more sophisticated cases you can actually radio label the monomers, and actually from the radioactivity measurements you can actually get the incorporation of individual monomers in the copolymers. And feed ratio you can get from the like normal chromatographic analysis like HPLC and GC. So, what you have now for different set of F1, you have values of capital F1. So, you make a plot where you put this in y axis, this one, and put this in x axis. So, the slope would give you R 1 and the intercept should give you R 2. So, that is one of the ways you can determine from experimental value different experiments with different feed ratio and stopping the reaction at very low conversion, and then measuring the mole fraction of different monomers in the copolymer. But this is a old method nowadays, these are not practiced in the lab. There are more sophisticated statistical method and which are computerized, they are used to determine R 1 and 2. We are not going into detail of those methods, but essentially the concept or the principle of determining R 1 and R 2 is similar, where you do the reaction in different feed monomer ratios and then stop the reactions at low conversion and get the copolymer composition, and then do from that you can get the reactivities of monomer reactivity values of R 1 and R 2. So, now let us talk about effect of structure, monomer structure on reactivities or reactivity ratios. Now, before I go into this, let us show you some number of just to say these are tabulated from known values. Now, these are the sum of the numbers of different R 1, R 2 and R and their product as well. So, for example, if you compare maleic anhydride and say styrene, now individual R 1 and R 2 they are very close to 0. So, basically they do not have a tendency to homopolymerize when they are together, and there is a tendency to copolymerize all the time. Now, when the structures are quite similar like this tetrafluoroethylene and ethylene or tetrafluoroethylene and monochlorotrifluoroethylene, their structures are very similar. So, their reactivity ratios are almost close to 1. So, they basically give a perfect ideal copolymerization. If you take a case like acrylonitrile and butadiene, then this is a higher number, this is a lower number. So, butadiene acrylonitrile has a more tendency to homopolymerize and butadiene will have more higher tendency to copolymerize. So, you will essentially get a copolymer at the beginning they will be rich in the monomer unit derived from acrylonitrile, and once acrylonitrile consumed, then you will get homopolymers of butadiene. So, basically you can get this R 1 and R 2 numbers from any standard literature, and from there you can compare this R 1 R 2 values and their product to get idea about how about the reactivities of the different monomers and the resulting copolymer, how the nature, the microstructure of the copolymers from a definite pair of monomers and the possible drift in the copolymer composition from these values of R 1 and R 2. Now, let us go back and see the effect of structure and reactivity. Now, in case of radical, first talk about the radical reaction. Now, in case of radical reaction, this copolymer reaction rate would depend on like resonance stability of the monomers or the substituent which is present. So, basically if I talk about a monomer like this, then the ability to of the Y group to stabilize any resulting radical, and then polar effect, how this double bond is polarized, they are electron deficient or electron rich, and steric effect, basically steric effect of the substituent group. Now, what is the reaction in a basically copolymerization or in a radical reaction? You have a radical and you have that is reacting with monomer to form another radical. So, if you want to compare the reactivity of different monomer to a particular radical, say if in this case if I fix this radical, this polymer radical or a propagating radical, let fix this, and then if I want to compare different monomers, how the reactions will look like. So, let us keep this intact and M 1 this will lead to M 1 dot M 2, this will lead to M 2 dot So, what essentially means, if you want to compare the reactivity of these different monomers M1, M2, M3 towards a particular radical, it is essentially dictated by the stability of these 3 propagating radical. If the propagating radical is more stable, then the reaction will go towards right hand side, and if it is not that stable, then reaction will not tend to go towards right hand side. So, basically the reactivity of different monomers towards a particular particle towards a particular radical will depend on the stability of the resulting radical from that monomer. So, higher the stability, higher is the reactivity. So, if I want to rank different monomers, I have to rank according to their ability to stabilize. So, if I write Y, phi, this has very strong stabilization effect on the radical, then this follows the ability of these substituents groups to stabilize the radical generated from this monomer. So, basically in this case, this has the least ability to stabilize a radical. If Y is H or Y is OR, that has the least ability to stabilize these radicals. So, they have a least reactivity towards a particular polymer radical. Now, this has a very high ability to stabilize this radical. So, they have a much higher reactivity towards a particular radical. Now, if I want to compare the reactivity of the radicals, see if I want to compare reactivity of different radicals with a single monomer, then what it will give? So, all the cases it will produce the same radical. So, the stability of this resulting propagating radical will be same. Hence, the reactivity order of these different propagating radicals towards a monomer will be inverse towards the stability of this radical. So, the monomer which is or the radicals which is least stabilized, they will have the highest reactivity towards a particular monomer. So, in this case, the order of reactivity of the radical will be exactly reverse for what we just showed for the reactivity of monomers towards a single radical. So, one more time, this order will follow for the reactivity of these monomers towards a given radical. Now, the radicals from these monomers will have exactly the reverse order when you compare their reactivity towards a single monomers. Now, let us compare some numbers, and so this is the rate constant for radical monomer reactions for different monomers and different polymer radical. So, if I compare different monomers with a particular radical, say like styrene in this case or MM in this case, so you will see that these numbers lower in this which means the order of reactivity of these monomers follow in this order which we just showed in the last page for a particular radical. So, if you are doing reaction of these monomers towards styrene radical, then they will follow this trend. And the radicals towards a particular monomer, say like say acrylonitrile, all the radicals will follow the reverse trend. So, vinyl acetate will have the highest reactivity compared to the other polymer radicals for a particular monomer. So, in this case if I take acrylonitrile, vinyl acetate has much higher reactivity compared to acrylonitrile and methyl methacrylate and styrene. So, basically if I want to compare differentiate where you have a stabilized radical and a not stabilized monomer, stabilized radical plus a stabilized monomer, a not stabilized radical and not stabilized monomer, not stabilized radical and a stabilized monomer. Now, in this case you have the highest reactivity. Most stable monomer, stabilized monomer will have more reactivity towards a particular radical, and radicals which are unstabilized, they will have higher reactivity towards a particular monomer. So, the reactivity order would be this. So, if you compare the reaction of styrene plus vinyl acetate, this radical from vinyl acetate will be highly reactive, and in this case styrene monomer. So, this is a vinyl acetate radical plus styrene monomer, vinyl acetate radical plus vinyl acetate monomer, styrene radical plus styrene monomer, styrene radical plus vinyl acetate monomer. A stands for stabilized. So, styrene is stabilized monomer and styrene radical generated from styrene is a stabilized radical. So, this will have highest tendency. So, if you have a vinyl acetate radical in the reaction medium, it will always copolymerize. If you have a styrene radical in the medium, it will always homopolymerize. So, basically if you have a reaction, radical copolymerization between styrene and vinyl acetate, these are the two product or to the reaction propagating pathway will dominate. So, it will be homopolymers of styrene and some alternate or copolymer of vinyl acetate and styrene. That is why the reactivity ratio are so different. M1 is styrene and vinyl acetate is M2. Now, there are these are all about steric effect, resonance effect. You can also have steric effect. Polar effect, let us talk about the polar effect first. Now, if you have electron withdrawing groups like in the monomers like say COR, CN or COR, and you could have electron donating group like CH3 OR. If you have electron withdrawing group, then the double bond will be electron deficient. So, basically they will be effectively positive, and if you have electron donating group, basically it will be electron rich double bond. So, if you have a monomers which are very different in their polarity of the double bond, then they will tend to form alternate copolymers, and if you have similar polarity, then they will tend to form a ideal polymerization. So, if I compare acrylonitrile and say methyl phenyl ketone, then they will have almost ideal polymerization, copolymerization, and if you compare taking two different groups where they are, this is electron deficient and this is electron rich, then they will tend to be forming alternate copolymers. So, if you choose two sets monomers from two different sets, then they will form alternate copolymer. If you choose monomers from same set, then they will tend to form a ideal polymer. You can have also steric effect affecting the monomer ratios. For example, if you have like compared to these two, this basically have very low reactivity because they are 1,2 substituent, and if you compare this with X and Y, then the steric does not play much role, then the resonance stabilization actually additive when they are present in the same carbon atom, whereas they are 1,2 substituent, then steric actually have a very detrimental effect. So, reactivity actually comes down very much. Now, some cases this polarity, the steric effect, the polarity effect actually can help in polymerize or overcome the steric effects. For example, if I take a monomer of this sort, like take malic anhydride and take stilbene. Now, because of steric effect, these two individual monomers they cannot homopolymerize because they are 1,2 substituted, their steric affinities has a problem, but their polarity is different. This is highly electron deficient and this is highly electron rich. So, what happened, this polarity effect actually help them to form copolymer, and they will be from different groups, as we mentioned, one from electron donating groups and withdrawing groups, and one from electron donating groups. So, we will have alternate copolymer forming. Just to give you some number about the steric effect, if I take, let us skip that for time being. Now, in case of radical polymerization, radical copolymerization, the reactivity does not depend too much on the reaction medium. However, if the because the medium, if the availability of monomers are different, then they actually affect or they affect their availability in copolymerization. As a result, you can get effectively different composition which is not predicted from their R 1 and R2 values. For example, if we have two monomers and then copolymerize then in bulk or solution and then compare their copolymerization behavior in heterogeneous polymerization system like emulsions or suspension, then what happened, there is sometimes there is a possibility that one of the monomers will preferably partition in the micellar core for say emulsion polymerization, and if the partition is more for one of the particular monomer, then that monomer will be available for copolymerization more than the other monomer. So, basically intrinsic reactivity ratios may not be different, but because their availability in terms of copolymerization are different as a result of their partition ability in the reaction point or the reactor, then their R1 and value might different. R1 and Y2 could be different if the monomer structure changes. For example, if you have carboxylic acid like acrylic acid and then compare its copolymerization behavior with acrylamide, then with change in pH of the medium, if there is a acidic pH, for example pH 2, then acrylic acid remain as COH, and if it is a basic pH like say pH 9, then we have a COO minus group, and as a result you have different monomers altogether and you have the reactivity would be different, the R1 and R2 values for acrylic acid and acrylamide would be different at different pH, and if there the copolymer is not soluble in the resulting monomers, then also there could be a complicated behavior of the two reactivity ratios. Now, what we are going to discuss is next is the Q&E scheme. Now, because all this there are three different type of effect which we have just studied, resonance effect and polarity effect and steric effect, which might alter the reactivities of the different monomers. It is very difficult to predict, they are very complicated, they are very difficult to predict or estimate the reactivity ratios and as a result the copolymer composition from given monomer structures. So, what is done is a semi empirical scheme, this QE scheme, which basically take care of the resonance stabilization and the polarity part, and basically have a values for different monomers, and from that values we can actually predict the copolymerization behavior of the two different one pair of monomers. Now, what we will do in the next lecture, we will start from this QE scheme and briefly talk about this and briefly talk about the ionic copolymerization and very briefly on the application part of this copolymerization, and start in the second half of that lecture we will start ring opening polymerization.